Mind me, everyone. My fat fingers just kept clicking a whole bunch of buttons. Nevertheless, we are live. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm very intrigued for this conversation today because you and I, for the couple of minutes that we had to chat before the show, you and I have very different projections for the Big Ten today. You and I are not anywhere near on the same page. And the funniest part is you're higher on teams that you were more critical of during the previews and then I was defending them. There's a couple of teams that happened with.
Like whomst?
Iowa is one of them. Iowa, I am not that high on, and you had them higher in your preseason rankings. I thought that was the one that was the most interesting.
Here's the thing with the Big Ten. Just because they're middle of the pack doesn't mean that I'm high on them.
Well, I'm not saying that you're high on them, but you're higher on them than I was. You had a team higher than I did.
I'm not higher than – I mean, I get that, but I don't think they're better than – or I don't think they're worse than Northwestern, Rutgers, Maryland. Like, there's a lot of teams at the bottom of the Big Ten here as we get into Big Ten predictions that show the bottom third of the league is atrocious. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude, but it is atrocious.
But the bottom third of the league is bad. But I think what's really unique about this conference, because the conference is so big, there's a really good chance. I did one of those record predictor sites to help me figure out how I think things are going to shape up. There's a really good chance the top 8-9 teams have a 9-3 record or better, which is nuts. I don't think all those teams are going to be in the playoff conversation. I think some of them are going to have mediocre resumes, but there's a really, really strong path with the way that these schedules align and in the way that some of these teams are improving this upcoming year that we can end up with that many 9-3 teams in the Big Ten. That's not even like me being hot takey. That's like literally if you look at their schedules.
Joe, what is your current thoughts on USC? Don't give me a paragraph, but what's your current thoughts? Joe, they might be the 6th or 7th best team in the league.
And they get 5 home Big Ten games, which gives them a huge advantage to go 9-3.
Agreed. But I'm just saying, like, I do think that I think Rhett Leslie's comments about being top heavy were misjustified to one conference.
Right. Okay.
Let's call it what it is. I mean, we're talking about USC being your 5th best team, arguably going into the season. So again, and we'll get into this, but there just comes a point in time where, like, Kirk Ferentz, with all of the baggage, I still trust more than some of these other teams and coaches. Like, when I look at Michigan State, what am I supposed to expect with Jonathan Smith? Like, I have no clue on what to expect. Everybody wants me to want to like Nebraska and think that they're going to be good. Do you realize how many dudes they lost in the portal? They lost 30-plus dudes in the portal. 30. And I'm supposed to come out here and say, oh, well, it's Nebraska and Matt Rule and they have Dylan Raiola, so everything's okay. No.
Well, but the guys they lost in the portal, I also think it's worth acknowledging that
they lost their number one guy in the portal, Jamari Butler, that led the team in tackles for a loss.
Okay. They still had one of the best portal classes, and they're still returning key contributing starters. And again, Dylan Raiola is important for this projection for we're talking about what they can accomplish. I get that they had a lot of roster turnover, but they still are bringing back and are bringing in a gifted roster compared to some of these other teams. I don't know. I don't like Iowa that much as much to like lean on Kirk Ferentz in this situation, but Nebraska.
No, where did I have them? Oh, get out of here! I had a middle of the pack.
You would have been 8. That's kind of high for how mediocre they were last year.
Throwing out allegations while we're fighting over semantics here.
Okay. Fine.
If you didn't notice, Joe and I will be previewing and giving our predictions of the Big Ten here today. We'll talk about our top 5-6 teams, and then we'll talk about some teams that are in this list that we think could come up and surprise some people, even though we have them lower than where they're currently projected. Joe, but as we start off tonight, the coaches poll was released. I'm not going to go through the top 25. I mean, I guess we technically could, but the coaches poll was released. Maybe somebody needed to go over to our good friends over at FanDuel and look at these odds. Because a lot of these odds do not line up with what the coaches poll came out today. When the coaches poll, which is now out and released, was there anything that shocked you in the coaches poll in the top 25?
Well, as we always talk about when the coaches poll comes out, even it's during the season, I don't really put a lot of faith in this being accurate. I think a lot of times these coaches circle brands that are recognizable to them when they're making these decisions. And this is a little bit of a spoiler for what we're going to talk about today, I feel really off having Michigan as high as they have them at number 14. I think that South Carolina deserves to be ranked at 13. There's a lot of roster turnover. I think them being ahead of Florida and being ahead of Ole Miss and Texas A&M, I don't know if I could get all the way there. And the last part with this, why are we ranking Boise State at 25, Blake? Why are we doing this? They just lost the most talented running back in all of college football last year, and they're bringing back their best players, Maddox Madsen, on at quarterback. I don't think that we should really anticipate that they're going to be the best G5 team, nor do they deserve to be ranked at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what they're doing there is that they're just kind of making a statement in reference to Boise State, because there is going to be a group of 5 team that gets in there. Joe, there isn't another group of 5 team that's on that list besides them, right? And so the matter of the fact is, okay, at least I'm looking at it right now, there's no other group of 5 team that's on that list. Who would be the team from the group of 5 that you think makes the playoff outside of them? Now, I agree with you on Boise and where things sit and then being at 25, but who is the team?
That is a good question. I think that there's not going to be anyone who goes undefeated in G5 play this year. I don't think.
Well, I mean, there certainly could be, because they just get absolutely hot, and we're not talking about them, and we don't know enough about them to know that. I mean, shit, Boise State almost went undefeated. They're a field goal away from beating Oregon in the regular season. So I understand that, but there also comes a point in time that I agree with you. It's a little bit much for me. I think they're just throwing them in there. Joe, the team that's way too high for me is SMU at 16.
Yep.
What are we doing? I don't think they're better than Indiana. I don't think they're better than Florida. I don't think they're better than A&M. And to be real with you, Joe, there's some teams in there that I feel like in the bottom of this list, the Big 12 was just thrown in there, because you have Iowa State, BYU, and Texas Tech. Now, I understand that Arizona State, returning Sam Lovett, they're up there, borderline top 10 at number 11. But, Joe, I mean, SMU, I continue to feel as if that SMU and really Indiana, for what it's worth, can they beat a top 25 team before we think that they need to be ranked? Like, can we see them? Some of these teams and these big brand name teams, Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, LSU, Georgia, Clemson, you name them, Notre Dame, you name them. The reason that they're constantly up there is because they recruit at a high level, and you know what you're pretty much going to get from all of them. Joe, but the bottom line is, what did SMU and Indiana really do last year that was worth a damn? Oh, they got in the playoff. Well, they didn't beat a top 25 team. So there also comes a part in time where I think that they're in there, maybe not Indiana as much, and I understand the quarterback situation with both of those teams. But there also comes a time in you're just throwing Florida in there for what? Behind them for what? I get out of here with that.
I would quickly defend Indiana, just because Indiana's at least bringing back, I think it's 16 starters that they're bringing back. They're bringing back guys that are at the top of the all-conference list, and some of them could be, All-American discussions for like D'Angelo Pons and Elijah Surratt and Kamara, who's a great pass rusher. Their offensive line's bringing back a lot of those guys as well, and they improved quite a bit. They had some of the biggest O-line pickups in the portal this past year. But SMU, I agree with you. I would put them at the back end. When we do our ACC predictions, I'm going to bring this up. Their defensive line, that was really underrated last year and was pretty good last year, a lot of those dudes went on to the NFL. A lot of those dudes are gone. I think Kevin Jennings is fine, but are we supposed to hope that he plays better in bigger games this upcoming year with the way that he melted down against Penn State? What are we banking on with SMU other than the fact that they had an easy schedule last year and that was why they got to the playoff?
The one thing this does, and I'm not saying coaches do this, okay, but you have number 1 versus number 2, Texas versus Ohio State in the coaches poll. You have number 5 Notre Dame versus number 10 Miami, and you have number 6 Clemson versus number 9 LSU. Hello, TV ratings. I mean, Joe, last year, 13 of the teams in the top 25 in the preseason coaches poll went unranked at the end of the year. And by the way, the teams that were in there, NC State, Iowa, Kansas, Arizona, Texas A&M, Kansas State, Oklahoma, Utah, Michigan, Florida State. I mean, there were teams that were in there in the Big 12, Arizona, Kansas State, even in the ACC with NC State last year, that I'm just like, man, what are we doing? What are we doing? Now, I will throw this out there. For the first time since 1999, the University of Oklahoma is not in the coaches poll top 25.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. So I would probably have actually maybe considered, I know this doesn't reflect my rankings yesterday, I would have maybe put them in there over Tennessee.
I would have put them in
BYU
Tennessee too, but here's the thing. If you're putting them in there, I would have put them in there over Iowa State, BYU, and Boise. I'd be real with you. I'm putting them in there over Kansas State. Here's another hot take. I'm putting Missouri in there above Kansas State. I mean,
I can't get there. I can't get there with Missouri.
Avery Johnson's got to go under double-digit turnovers. Sorry.
Who's Missouri starting quarterback?
Prabula.
Him and Horn are still duking it out. It doesn't sound
Horn
like
just signed a baseball contract. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that he's going to start. You can't sign for that level of money and convince me that he's fully bought in. Joe, I mean, you're talking about a dude.
Wait, hold on. Kyler Murray got drafted at the 8th
Joe,
overall.
he's throwing a bullpen, and he posted it on Twitter 3 days ago. I'm not bought in on the Sam Horn news.
I can't get all the way there. I think that the Missouri roster's fine. Kansas State deserves to have been in there. But as we're looking at the back end of this, why is BYU even ranked? Why is Iowa State?
Yeah. Speaking of quarterbacks, who in the hell is the quarterback at BYU?
Nobody knows. And the rest of that roster is middle of the pack in the Big 12. Iowa State lost the best receiving duo in the Big 12 last year in Higgins and Knoll, who both moved on to the NFL and were picks by the Houston Texans. So here's the thing, and you just alluded to this. A lot of times the coaches poll, which is we're sitting here freaking out over it because it's what we do on this show. But a lot of times the coaches just pick the teams that were good last year. That's literally what they do. And that's why the vast majority of them don't end up returning on the final ranking at the end of the season, because they're just picking the teams that did pretty well at the end of the year and throwing them on there. Like Iowa State, BYU, Boise State, SMU are all examples of that.
Can they do it again? We'll be really interested. I got it. Hot take. You ready? Some of these Big 12 teams, I would have put Colorado in over them. Yeah, I said it.
Honestly, I don't disagree with that.
I mean,
over
I said
BYU,
it.
Absolutely.
I would put them in there over BYU. That was the team that I was alluding to, yes. The only other one, Joe, that I'll throw out there to you, I kind of think Texas Tech needs to be a little bit higher. I think both of us are pretty sold on them. So if there is a Big 12 team, and that's not bashing the Big 12, I do think that they needed to be there. All right. We got a super chat in here, a $2 super chat from Jake K. Says Oregon is going to win the national title. Well, we're going to do our Big 10 projections, but I don't think Joe has Oregon winning his national title.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go there, them win a title this year. We'll get into it when we talk about them during our rankings reveal, but they will be in the hunt for the top of the Big 10, though. I don't think it's a hot take at all.
I do agree. I need to see some things when it comes to Oregon. I still, for what it's worth, I still believe that they're going to be a very, very talented team. We'll see what happens there. All right. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share. Share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. you're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. Every episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Go over today and make those bets. If you want to do the Heisman's, Joe, a couple of days ago, I might have placed a little bit of a Heisman bet on one of my other shows. But is it going to be March Manning at plus 700, Garrett Nussmeier plus 900? Are you going to go with the Big Ten best receiver in the Big Ten at Jeremiah Smith? You can go and get all of those odds over at FanDuel. Must be 21 or older in most selective states, unless you're in D.C., Kentucky, or West Virginia, where you must be 18 years or older, and you must be present inside that state. For gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-GAMBLER, or visit FanDuel.com/RG. That's FanDuel.com/RG for all of those numbers and regulations. All right, Joe, you want to get into our Big Ten projections here?
Let's do it.
All right, so Joe, as we go to the Big Ten today, your top 18 as it sits, how you see the Big Ten shaking out is in order of this.
At number 1, I've got Penn State. Number 2, Oregon. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 4, Illinois. Number 5, USC. Nebraska, Indiana, Washington, Michigan, Iowa 10, Michigan State 11, Minnesota, UCLA, Wisconsin, Maryland, Purdue, Rutgers, and finishing off with Northwestern.
All right, so my top 18 here as it sits, and we do have a lot of disagreement here, but I have number 1, Penn State, number 2, Ohio State, number 3, Oregon, number 4, Michigan, number 5, Illinois, number 6, Indiana, number 7, USC, number 8, Iowa, number 9, Nebraska, number 10, Washington, number 11, Michigan State, Minnesota at 12. At 13, 14, and 15, I have UCLA, Wisconsin, and Rutgers. And rounding out the bottom 3, I have Maryland, Purdue, and Northwestern. Joe, both of us, it seems as if that we have the Penn State Nittany Lions at number 1. Joe, a team that's coming into the season with a lot of hype is James Franklin's Nittany Lions. When you look at the Penn State Nittany Lions, why do you believe that they're going to win the Big Ten?
The hype is completely justified because they did exactly what Ohio State and what Michigan did in order to go on national championship runs last year and the year before. I'm not going to go all the way there. I do not have Penn State winning a national title this season, but they're at least geared up and ready to finally win the Big Ten in a season where Oregon's resetting quite a bit. Ohio State is resetting a lot, which we'll get to in a second. They have arguably the best offensive line and defensive line in the conference. They have the best running back room in the conference. They have the best defensive backfield in the conference, and quite possibly one of the best, at the very least, one of the best linebacker rooms. There is talent, developed talent, all over this roster. The biggest questions come down to James Franklin getting this team ready to go for their biggest games and for the Big Ten championship game. And for Drew Aller to step up to the plate and make the big throws that he needs to, unlike what he did against Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl and some of the mistakes that we saw from him in the Big Ten championship game against Ohio State, all of those things.
You mean Oregon?
No, when they played, I'm talking about when they played.
They played in the Big Ten championship. It was Oregon.
No, but I was talking never.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You got me all twisted up in a pretzel the way you coming up. When they played Ohio State in the regular season and in the Big Ten championship.
I got what you're saying. Not bad.
Those two ifs are big, Blake, but the talent on this roster is so gifted that it gives them the best opportunity to win it. So I'm not going to bet against that.
You left out one thing that I think is very critical. They might have one of the better wide receiver rooms in the Big Ten, if not the country. I mean, listen, I am pretty bullish on Hudson, Ross, and Trevor Pena. I think people need to understand how good Trevor Pena is. I mean, the ACC was a lot of things last year. Sucking at wide receiver was not one of them, and he was one of the best. Joe, for me, I am giving, for what it's worth, right, wrong, or indifferent, I am literally giving Drew Allard the benefit of the doubt in reference to some of the weapons that he had on the outside a season ago. I don't think that, look, the last game we saw, Penn State play against Notre Dame, a receiver didn't have a catch. Let's see if that changes. I think it's going to change. And by the way, if it doesn't change, this is going to be on Drew Allar and Penn State because these guys were highly productive at other places. Very, very highly productive. So can someone in that wide receiver room be really good? But, Joe, the problem that I think that sets up for them offensively with second-year OC Andy Kotelnicki is your running game along with that offensive line, which, by the way, returns 4 seniors along that offensive line. What are you going to try to take away? Are you going to have to take away that receiver core that's really talented or arguably one of, if not the best running back duo in the country, which a lot of people believe? Joe, the reason that people do not want to buy into Penn State is not really Allar. It's not really the receivers or running backs or defense, or whatever it may be. A lot of people are really standoffish because of James Franklin. And I think that that's the part where people are hesitant. And I understand as to why. Joe, I love some of the things that they have returning defensively. You bring in Jim Knowles, who just came off a national title at Ohio State. I love their safety room. I love Wheatley. I love a lot of the things that they have. I love that King Mack is coming in. I love Dennis Sutton. The things that they've done, Joe, they got talent everywhere. The question becomes, now that you've accumulated all this talent, can you take that next step? And in reference to Drew Allar, we're just at a place in time where now you have to deliver. There are no more excuses. I do think it's very interesting to see what it's going to look like in a second year with the same OC with him. Joe, let's call it what it was. How many OCs did he have before Andy Kotelnicki? 3. He had 3. This is the first time that he's had a coordinator for a second year ever, literally. So you're getting to a place where now that you have the same voice and going through the same stuff and same system, can he take that next step will be a big question.
The next step is where the uncertainty obviously lies. I do really wonder, like, does that end up catching up to them? Does that end up being what holds them back?
Oh, it's certainly.
I know that we've got people in the chat. We got Alex in the chat saying, are we really going to trust James Franklin to get it done in these big games? The counter I would provide to this, how long did we spend talking about that with Ryan Day? I am not trying to say that Ryan Day and James Franklin are on the same exact level. I think that Ryan Day is a better coach than James Franklin, and he's proven it. But there was a really good stretch until he won that national title last year. We had these conversations nationally, not just the two of us, when they lost to Michigan. A lot of people were wondering, can Ryan Day win the big games?
They're called for him to be fired.
So, what is my point, though, is it takes a long time for some coaches to break through. It does. It's not just an instant thing. Not every coach is Kirby Smart, and Kirby Smart even took a long time. Nick Saban took a little bit of time before he broke through and started winning his big games against better coaches. It's just the how difficult it is to succeed in college football.
Here's what I think. Oregon came in and won the Big Ten in year 1, right? And they had a quarterback that was highly experienced, okay? Mm-hmm. You bring in Dylan Gabriel, and if you're Ohio State, who did you bring in? Well, it was simple. You brought in Walker Howard. Joe, I don't know. Here's what I feel like the Big Ten fan base is doing. James Franklin can't win the big one. Well, he's won the Big Ten before. Okay, so don't say that he can't win the big one when he's literally won your conference before, because that has happened. Okay,
right.
There comes a point in time where we both think that Dante Moore and Julian Sain are very talented. We've barely seen them throw a pass at their selective schools. Barely. Joe, have you seen Julian Sain drop back 30 times in a game and throw passes under pressure? Because I haven't. All this talk is just talk. When we're talking about projections, we've seen Drew Allar be in those fires. Again, I am just in the boat for him specifically. I am going to give him the benefit of the doubt when it comes down to you went out and got 3 receivers. Why? You pay Trevor Pena. I'll throw this out there. Joe, when Trevor Pena went into the portal, I know of a team that's very close to me that was going after it. I know about what the money was, and Penn State said, no. We're going to get it. And so, I mean, they did what they needed to do. If Drew Allard does and is not successful with this core, then fine. It is what it is. But they return those offensive linemen. They return that running game. And to Elks, they're on the 1 yard line against Ohio State to win the game last year. They are. I mean, it's not like there was a massive separation a season ago. I mean, Joe, am I wrong? Was there some massive separation from Ohio State and Penn State a year ago? Or am I going nuts?
No, there wasn't. But I think that where the commentary comes from is the fact that they did get that far down the field and they couldn't accomplish it. They couldn't score. They couldn't finish the damn thing off.
Very fair. I'm with you. They did. That whole unit returns. I look at these other teams, and we'll get into them. Joe, do you have any idea what Notre Dame, Ohio State's going to be defensively under Matt Patricia? The last time we saw Dante Moore, brother, he got benched. I mean, I think the kid's going to be highly talented. I don't mean it like that. But again, you want me to come in here and hedge a bet on a team that I just think is extremely talented, which I think that Penn State is. Drew Allard could definitely not progress, and we're sitting back in the same spot that we were a season ago.
I hope that progression does come because he is incredibly gifted. I think that if we just see just a slight step forward, and we talked about this last week because James Franklin kind of chimed in on it, how he went from this super raw kid who was still learning how to throw a football. He wasn't originally like a natural quarterback recruit like we get with these other kids where they're out the womb doing 7-on-7. He was somebody who had to learn to figure out how to use his big frame. And we've seen a year by year progression and improvement of him reeling all that in, where he's got all this power and all this juice, but sometimes his balls are errant. They're not as on point and as accurate as they need to be. And he makes some questionable decisions at times. I would think that a second year with Andy Kotelnicki of them getting to know each other better and still having Singleton and Katron Allen to lean on in the run game, that there will be an improvement. I think one layer that does need to be added to this that is important for the discussion, because scheduling is incredibly important for talking about all these things.
Yes.
Penn State heavily benefits from hosting Oregon at home. That is both of those teams' hardest matchups, is that game. Some of their hardest matchups. So Oregon has to go across the country with a time zone difference. I don't know when kickoff is projected to be. I don't even know if there is a projected kickoff at the current moment. I think it's supposed to be a night game, but you're still traveling across the country. Penn State getting to host that is where that slight edge comes into play. And if they're both 11-1, Penn State has the nod over them for winning the regular season.
Can they get a pass rush? Can Dennis Sutton be the guy that we think he is? I do think that they have one of the best safety rooms in the country. I've told you this. I love Zakee Wheatley. Zakee Wheatley, he will come down and blow your head off. Pause. But, I mean, he will. Again, we're talking about a team, Joe, that last year went 11-2 or 13-2, whatever it was. They're on the cusp. Can they overcome? Will be the ultimate question. There's too many unknowns for these other teams where I think Penn State's just talented enough where they can ultimately take it. Elks does say with a $2 super chat, Knowles' defense takes more than 1 year to install. Well, it took more than 1 year at Ohio State. It doesn't mean that it takes more than 1 year at Penn State. Just because Michigan came into the horseshoe and ran it down your throat doesn't mean that's going to happen to Penn State. Sorry. I mean, it doesn't.
I agree with you on that. I think it's
there's nothing to do with install when a team lined up and ran dive and ran right at you and busted your ass. It's a physicality problem.
Well, right. Yeah, there's nothing to install when you're getting ran over. But like the other part with that is the evidence that we're pointing to is it took Ohio State a year to learn and properly implement his defense. That to me is not enough evidence to prove that. We don't know how things look differently at Penn State. This Penn State defense is very gifted.
Hold on, pause. Yes, you do. This is their third straight defensive coordinator.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good freaking point. They've actually been very adaptable, extremely adaptable.
Extremely adaptable. They literally had Manny Diaz. They had Allen a season ago who went on.
Yeah.
They haven't been outside the top 7 in total defense.
I mean, that's the evidence. That's the evidence in favor. There's more evidence in favor than there is against.
100%. And by the way, they were the number 1 total defense in the country 2 years ago under Manny Diaz. I mean, what are we talking about? All right.
Yeah.
Joe, at number 2 here, I have the Ohio State Buckeyes and you have the Oregon Ducks. I'll let you decide on where we go here.
Well, let's talk about Ohio State first.
By the way, we didn't do this for Penn State, but what's their FanDuel over under and what is their FanDuel odds to win the conference?
FanDuel 10.5 is the win total, and they are the favorite, Ohio State, plus 185 to win the Big Ten.
Okay.
Here's my thing, Blake, with this Ohio State team. I think that they're going to finish 10-2, considering the fact that they finished 10-2 last year with a way better roster. You are resetting at both coordinators. The last time that Brian Hartline was OC, and it's brought up if he wasn't really the play caller at the time. Regardless, he's back taking the reins. The offense was messy. I have hope that it's going to be better, but you now have a brand new quarterback who's seen no bullets. He has not been in any pressure situations in games that he has had to face that have prepared him up to this point. I think Julian Saint's going to be great, but we have no idea what he's going to look like. It's a process. Their whole defense, though, for me, Blake, is where it's less of a worry, but at least a question mark. I don't think they're going to be cooked on defense. I don't think that they're going to be in a ton of trouble because they're at least well recruited. And Sonny Styles is a freak athlete. Caleb Downs is a freak athlete. Igbinosun is a great corner. But we got to remember, the end of the spring, they're talking about how they got to go in the portal to go get defensive line depth. I don't think that they're anywhere near as deep as they're used to being at defensive line, and I think that that's something that could catch up to them. I see them losing to Texas, and I think that there's a chance that they drop a game that they're not supposed to during the regular season. I just don't know what that is at the current moment.
Inside the conference, because at the end of the day, if we're talking about just winning the Big Ten, the Texas game means nothing, right? I mean, it legitimately means absolutely squat, okay? Right. The thing for me with Ohio State and Joe, why I have them at number 2, you go to Washington, okay. You got Minnesota, okay. You go to Illinois and Wisconsin. That's 2 games on the road in back-to-back weeks. Then you come back home after a bye week, and then you have Penn State. Then you go to Purdue. You got UCLA, Rutgers, and Michigan a part of that schedule. Joe, it's not Murderer's Row. You are more talented than all of those. And God forbid you lose to Penn State, okay? It happens. Penn State is loaded. They got a lot of guys returning. Drew Allar, receivers, defense. They got your defensive coordinator, all of that. I get it. Joe, I can't see them losing more than 1 game in the Big Ten. Sorry, I cannot see it. I get to a place where I get what you're saying. They're in a situation where it's not a rebuild. It's a mini reload in some regards. You're right. Defensively, I have no idea what to expect from Matt Patricia. I mean, I know that he was great with Bill Belichick in New England. A lot of people were really good with Bill Belichick in New England with Tom Brady. A lot of people were. I mean, I don't – what? I mean, that was Bill's defense. Like, I'm not saying Matt Patricia is a bad DC or anything like that. I have no idea what to expect. Now, Texas doesn't know what to expect either, but that's neither here nor there at the current moment. Joe, I just think they're just so much more talented and have a better coaching staff than all those other teams. I'm going to need to see teams outside of Penn State like Illinois, Wisconsin, Washington, Minnesota, Wisconsin, UCLA, Rutgers, Michigan. And I know that the Michigan game's the big thing of where you look at and say, well, Blake, Michigan's just got Ohio State and Ryan Day's number right now. Maybe you're right and that does happen. And it's been happening regardless. Look, it happened last year and you won a national title and you still lost to them. I just cannot see it happening. Now, Michigan, okay. Penn State, okay. The other ones, I'm going to need to see it happen first. You talk about Julian saying, God bless you. You talk about Julian.
Thank you. I don't know how you noticed I sneezed.
I mean, it's right there on camera. I don't know what else to do.
Okay.
You look at Julian saying, and I'm with you there. But I look at that receiving core, and I look at Smith, Tate, and Ennis. I think if Carnell Tate steps up and some of the pressure is relieved, if Ennis steps up and the pressure is relieved on Jeremiah Smith, he can do some good things. The question becomes, along the offensive line, you're bringing in 2 new running backs and more of a figuration along the offensive line. Can they hold up for Julian saying? That will be the biggest question mark. Joe, you are replacing 2 coordinators, and I do think it's a big deal. But at this, the crazy thing in all of this is I think that all of your logic is correct. The problem is Oregon's not on that schedule. The team that has just as much talent, if not more talent, this year than them is Penn State and Texas. And one of them, this isn't even a part of the Big Ten. So, again, I'm going to need to see a lot of these other teams beat them before I say they're outside of my top 2 at the current moment.
So, one, I will give credit to this defensive line and what they can accomplish this year, because I think that Kenyatta Jackson is incredibly underrated, and he was just buried last year in the deep unit. We talked really highly of Bo Atkinson, who they brought in from North Carolina. I'm more focused on the interior guys on what to expect there. Here is, though, where we need to have the conversation. How much faith do we have in Julian Sayin? Because I think that Sayin is going to be the next great Ohio State quarterback. But last time that we had Emeka Ibuka and Marvin Harrison Jr. and that insanely talented receiver unit, and Kyle McCord was struggling in his first year starting, and we had high hopes for him too. Got to remember there was a lot of hype around him, and I hate the revisionist history around Kyle McCord sometimes, but he was coming in as a 5-star, and there was hope that he was going to be great. And despite having 2 awesome receivers, he struggled. I would think Jeremiah Smith being better than Marvin Harrison Jr. He would be. I mean, that's not a crazy thing to say. That's not a crazy thing to say at all. No, I don't think that it is at all.
He's played 1 year. He's played 1 year.
Yeah, but the first year true freshman impact for Jeremiah Smith is way higher than Marvin Harrison Jr. So I'm going with Jeremiah Smith in that situation. Ennis and Carnell Tate, I think, provides a little bit more depth, and Max Clare is going to be the best tight end in the conference if it's not Kenyon Sadiq. Do we trust Sayin, though? Like, that's the question. Like, do you know what I trust? Do we really trust him?
Do you know what I trust?
What?
I trust the greatest coach of all time recruiting this kid and getting him committed, and then him retiring, and then him saying going in the portal, and then I trust Ryan Day offensively. One quarterback's not going to dissuade me from that. I mean, listen, if Nick Saban and Ryan Day both believe that this kid can play at a high level, who am I to come in here on any show and say that he can't?
Well, Saban started Jalen Milroe, and he's started other guys that weren't that good.
He also started 3 straight quarterbacks that went in the first round before Jalen Milroe, too.
Okay, fair. That's fair.
I mean,
that's fair.
Again, I get what you're saying in reference to we have not seen this kid play at all, okay? But again, I also saw Kyle McCord only lose 2 games, which, okay, sure, they're 3. Joe, is that their floor? Again, are you here's the counteract that I would say to that. Are you are you confident in all those other teams not named Penn State and Michigan to beat them inside the conference? Because I'm not. I'm not. I get what you're saying. I don't think quarterback play gets worse than Kyle McCord. I don't.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna be that bad. I all don't. I'm sure some people might take me out of context and think that's what I'm saying. But I come back to what I brought up at the beginning here. They had the most talented roster that they've had in a long time at Ohio State. It was built to go on a national championship run, and it did. But if it wasn't for the expanded playoff existing, they don't win a national title. They don't get there because they lost to Michigan at home, and now they have to go to the Big House this upcoming year. And as much as Michigan's got a good bit of roster turnover, losing a bunch of really gifted players that went in the first and second round of this past draft. They're going to be a lot better offensively, which we'll probably talk about them at the end. I feel off committing to the belief that they go 11-1 after they went 10-2 last year. The schedule is not really that much different. Both years were easy. The only difference is that they don't have to play Oregon and they don't have to travel to Autzen. That's the difference.
Fair. I mean, fair. I need to see it. And I understand the whole Michigan thing. But again, week one, like we said with Texas last night, it's going to tell a lot. Yeah. If Julian Sand can maneuver in the first start against that Texas front seven, he can maneuver against some of these other teams. Alex with a $5 super chat says, it's taken more than 1 year everywhere. Blake Knowles.
Sorry, Blake.
Sorry, Blake Knowles, but Knowles has said it himself. It takes longer. Actually know what you're talking about instead of taking shots.
We're not taking shots. Come on. But you brought up a really good point.
How is me saying that you getting your face run over is scheme related? Please tell me how that's taking a shot when they ran for 250 yards on you. I'm sorry. That's not a shot. It's actually factually happened. Like,
ran over.
You just because someone proves a point wrong to you doesn't mean someone's taking a shot at you. I'm sorry. You gave up 250 rushing yards.
And there's no sign stealing stuff in that too. Just because even if you know what scheme a defense is running, like that doesn't open up gigantic rushing lanes for all those big run plays that happened in those games when they played against Michigan.
It baffles me that when you can run simple dive 4 straight plays, Michigan ran how many times against Penn State and won? Like, again, it's not rocket. It's not a shot. I mean, brother, okay, if you want me to take shots here, you got 2 coordinators and you demoted one and you promoted him because you were too late in the process to go get somebody. You demoted somebody and you think that offensively you're going to be just as good. That would be a shot. So I don't care what Jim Knowles says. Sorry. All right.
He sent us another one. McCord was all mental and soft, saying isn't soft. Did anyone say that McCord was soft at the beginning of the year? That, again, is revisionist history that happens with this stuff. Appreciate the super chat, Alex, but like, come on.
I'm not going to call a kid mentally weak. Joe, at number 2, you have Oregon, and I have them at 3. When you look at the Oregon Ducks at FanDuel, what is their over-under and win total, and what is their plus-minus to win the conference?
On FanDuel, they are plus 340, the third best odds to win the Big Ten. And then also on FanDuel, their win total is also 10.5. So Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State all at 10.5, which is pretty interesting. Here's my big driving force for why I have a lot of belief in Oregon this upcoming year. I think they deserve a lot more recognition for how well Dan Lanning has recruited this team. And now there is an opportunity for his first like real recruiting classes of these 5-star guys, high 4-stars, to step onto the field and to dominate. He had a lot of guys that he brought in through the transfer portal or that were already a part of the roster that were there and played well, and they got the most out of them. But now we get to see these SEC caliber defensive linemen tee off. We get to see what Amari Washington gets to do as a starter, who made it on a Feldman's freak list. He's a 338-pounder who had a 36-inch vertical. This dude is insanely athletic. He's replacing Jamari Caldwell, who I think you upgraded there. Elijah Rushing should be contributing more. Mateo Uyunglele we're super high on. And they also brought in Dylan Thieneman. I think that there's a shot, Blake, that their defense is better than it was a year ago, which is pretty crazy to say. And I have belief in Will Stein tapping into Dante Moore and getting the most out of him. We can have an extended discussion on that, and I'll throw it to you. But I feel like this team is one of the few rare instances of a team getting better despite putting out veteran guys to the NFL.
Well, and they won the conference in their first year and getting there. I do think defensively they're absolutely disgusting. At all three levels. They're absolutely they will be better, I think, than they were a year ago. Down the stretch, I do feel like the depth was a problem because, Joe, remember at the end of the season a year ago, they were giving up well over 150 yards plus on the ground. Some of those same guys are there, and some of the depth pieces that you're using are becoming starters. So we need to see on that. You do add in Bear Alexander, who's been, for whatever it's worth, a little bit of a problem child at most stops that he's been at. Can Dan Lanning, who was a big part of that recruitment to Georgia in the beginning, be the person that can get through to him and get him to where he wants to go? Joe, for me, it's just so much offensively for me to overcome of why I still think Penn State and Ohio State are there. Okay? Listen, the bottom line here for me is this. You have 3 new offensive linemen. I think Isaiah World is really good. You have Mekhi Hughes from Tulane that's coming in. I still think your running game's going to be good. Joe, with Evan Stewart going down, and now you're trying to promote a freshman receiver who, by the way, he committed on my show, and DeCorian Moore. I 1,000% believe that he is going to be special. But I got a real, true first-time starter at a high level and a high-profile school with some receivers that we need to see take that next level. You got a lot of absences there. Joe, they hit in some regards along their offensive line the last couple of years from the portal, but in the beginning of the season, what happened? We were talking about they can't run the ball and they can't separate from Idaho. No, not Idaho, Idaho. Okay? So you get to a place where how quickly can this offense get moving? And it's not like Dylan Gabriel hadn't been around the block a couple of times because he had been. Dante Moore sitting did what for him? That is the question coming out of Oregon for me. What did it do? Can they take that next step? Can he prove that he is as talented as we think that he is going to be? Will be the ultimate question. I got to be real with you. If you're making me pick the best defense in the entire Big Ten, it is Oregon to me. I'm just a little worried about them offensively and how they'll get some things done. I think it's not as easy as saying, well, we have so-and-so. Well, again, in the beginning of the year, you couldn't separate against some teams, and it almost bit you in the ass.
One thing I also just want to toss in here before I come back for the offensive discussion, they're one of the few teams, too, that has continuity at both coordinator positions. That is something that just doesn't happen a lot in college football. They're bringing back same OC, same DC, with all these guys that they've been working with for the past couple of years. That is a huge underrated boost that they have. I get what you're saying with the concerns offensively. I think their O-line is going to be fine. I think it's different than your typical reclamation project, duct tape project with bringing in 3 offensive linemen because Pregnon's still an experienced starter and he's a pretty good player. You know, get drafted top 200 picks, maybe top 150 picks. And we know that Isaiah World is insanely gifted. Evan Stewart going down with the injury that he had definitely takes a little bit of air out of this. It makes me feel a little bit uneasy because if they had him and DeCorian Moore, this receiver room's pretty explosive. Now that we have to rely on a true freshman, it puts a lot of pressure on Dante Moore's shoulders to be that guy.
Agreed.
To be a first-round caliber type of a quarterback guy. I think that they're going to need to run the ball a lot more. And I think if they do have success, they do go 10 and 11 and 1, and they end up having a great year, and they get back to the Big Ten championship game, it's going to be because they lean on Mekhi Hughes and they get more out of Noah Whittington. There is a shot for them to do so, but they got to run the rock more because they just don't have the reliability and the experience at receiver like they thought they were going to have.
September 27th is when you got to all figure it out. You got Montana State, Oklahoma State, Northwestern, Oregon State, and then Penn State comes into town. So when you got to figure it out.
They go to Penn State.
I mean, excuse me. They go to Penn State. You're right. Then you got to figure it out. Joe, I feel like there's going to be something in there that we're missing. I don't know who or what it is. But, again, I need to see it, man. I mean, I don't think from Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon, I think there's so many there's fine hairs that we have to come in here and try to split. And I don't think it's fair when you feel like that there's 3 teams that's as evenly talented as the 3 of them that you can do that. Again, I do think defensively, though, they can carry it in the beginning of this. And here's the thing. You going into Pennsylvania, you going up against Penn State, that defense, we've seen Drew Allar struggle in the past. This defense can cause him a lot of problems. And so we'll see with Oregon there. All right. Joe, let's continue here. I know that we wanted to get to the University of Michigan. You have Michigan at 9. I don't agree with you. I got Michigan at 4. Why is there such a massive separation? What is the win total for Michigan, and what's the over-under on them to win the conference in the Big Ten?
Their win total on FanDuel is 9.5. Their odds to win the conference plus 1,000. So there's a pretty big gap between them and Oregon on FanDuel. Okay, here's my thing. Like, I think that they're going to be a lot more dynamic offensively with an actual quarterback in Bryce Underwood. I really like Justice Haynes. I think that he is a great, talented, underrated running back that didn't get enough chances to shine in Alabama. But when you're losing Mason Graham, Will Johnson, and Colston Loveland, and also Josiah Stewart, you're replacing a lot defensively when the backbone of your team's success was your defense. I know that you stood up and dominated Alabama the way that you did just on the lines of scrimmage. And that should be a little bit of enough of a taste of like, hey, look what we can do without the big name guys, without the first rounders. Mm-hmm. To feel that they're going to win and to finish that highly, I think that this is like a 7-8 win football team. How often do we see true freshman quarterbacks step in and lead a team to 9 wins? That's where I won't go. I think Bryce Underwood's going to be special, but I can't go that far to think that this team is a 9-win football team or more just because they have an easy schedule. Freshman mistakes will step in just like it happened with DJ Lagway, just like it happened with Dylan Raiola.
Difference with DJ Lagway is he, out of the 6 games that he played there at the end, 5 of them were ranked. Now, only just was it Florida State was the only one that's not. I mean, I agree. I agree with you on the freshman mistakes are coming, and everybody needs to be patient. The issue I have and take with that is there's no Penn State on this schedule. There's no Oregon on the schedule. Joe, you're talking about 4 losses, and where do they come? I mean, again, we're talking about going to Nebraska. I get that. Going to USC, I understand that. But there also comes a point in time where there are some 50-50 games in there for me. I look at schedules like Indiana. In the conference, it ain't really nice for you at the current moment. You got some big teams that you got to play in there. By the way, you don't have Indiana either. If you are Michigan, the schedule is so favorable for me at the current moment that, Joe, I feel like I saw a buy-in of a team for what it's worth that just went into a bowl game and went into the last regular season game of the season with Will Johnson was out. Jeremiah Smith and them got nothing going. Will Johnson was out, and they couldn't do anything. I think it's a mentality thing for me. I think they're one of the toughest teams in the conference. I really disagree
with that. I don't disagree with that.
And to be real with you, I understand the mistakes are coming. I get all of that. I understand it all, and he's going to make them. This offense is a little bit different. And here's the thing that I know. If they can get to 8 wins with a walk-on, they can get to 9 wins with a 5-star. So it's not like we're separating them at a high level. We're talking about a win. A win. There is no Texas on this schedule. It's Oklahoma, which, by the way, we don't know what Oklahoma's going to be. I do like John Mateer, Jalen Ott, and the guys. But, again, I'm just getting to a place where, Joe, it's Ohio State at the end of the year.
Okay. Here's my thing, though. And you actually kind of highlighted the 4 games that I project that they're going to lose. The comment that you made about the quarterback difference is true. But to reiterate here, the problem is they were able to lean aggressively on their defense. They were able to lean aggressively on their run game. But more specifically, their defense. You're losing a first-round tight end also on offense in Colston Loveland, who's banged up at times last year, but not having. I didn't even bring up Kenneth Grant. Shit, I didn't even bring up Kenneth Grant. Yeah, they lost two of the most gifted defensive tackle prospects that we've had in the last 5 years. Both those guys were freakish athletes and were so disruptive the minute that they started to contribute for Michigan. I'm not saying that this group is a bunch of scrubs, but when you go from blue chip first round talent to good football players, there's going to be a little bit of a drop off. I'm not saying you get ran the hell over, but I think that when you don't have that crazy level of unblockable dudes in the middle of your defense, there is going to be a game here or there that you end up losing because they end up dicing you up on the back end. And there's also, again, no Will Johnson, who I understand missed time last year, but you don't have the freakishly athletic, tall, long, and instinctive 6'2" corner that's picking off everything that's thrown in his direction.
They beat Alabama, which everybody has in the playoff, with all the guys that they have returning, and Davis Warren went 9 for 12 with 73 yards.
I get it. That evidence is against me. I get that.
They also are bringing back dudes defensively who, when you look at them, like I look at what they did in the replacement of that. Okay, I get what you're saying. It's a lot to overcome. You got so many dudes that sacked Jalen Milroe that are back, and Joe, they got after him for 6 sacks. I mean, you can't look at the guys that started in that bowl game against, and then look at Alabama and say, well, hey, all this offensive linemen are returning. They got their shit pushed in by Michigan, but you know what? They just got so much to replace. You can't be high on – I'm not saying you, but you can't be high on Bama and then look at Michigan and say, well, it meant nothing.
Wait, but Bama – because Bama's bringing back a lot of those guys that were there last year, and they're a much more talented core. They just didn't play well in spurts. That was an example of a game where they weren't locked in and they weren't focused. That was the takeaway for me, that they didn't show up to compete.
Derek Moore gave Caden Proctor all he could want, and a lot of y'all in the draft world think he's a top 10 to 15 pick, I would assume. Maybe top 20, whatever it is.
Proctor? No, we're not there.
Okay.
Nobody has him that high.
Well, he's a preseason All-American, okay, for whatever that's worth. And you literally had last season a guy that is back at Michigan and Derek Moore tee off. Along the defensive line, you bring in Damon Payne and Trey Williams. Can they give you any level of production will be an interesting thing. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, well, I'm going to be an asshole for 2 seconds. You said that game didn't matter. At the end of the season, you said that Michigan-Alabama game didn't mean anything. And
well,
now
hold
it
on.
means something in this conversation.
Hold on. Y'all told me that it mattered. So if it did matter, then you can't be high on Bama then.
So you're agreeing that it did matter. So you're agreeing that
I don't think bowl games really matter in the grand scheme of things. But there's individual things that you can take out of bowl games. As an example, I got a first team All-American left tackle that was decided by everybody besides you and I. Then I have a defensive end outside linebacker that ate his ass alive. Pause. But he did. Joe, he had 6 pressures in that game. Again, now I look at their schedule, okay? And in looking in that schedule, you're 8 wins a season ago, and I think Bryce Underwood can get you to 9.
I don't disagree with the logic. I can't get there because there's turnover. I don't think that the Alabama game is enough for me to feel good about this upcoming season.
It's not just
Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Ohio State.
It's not just Bama, but hold on. Joe, are they going to ride that momentum that they had at the end of the season into this upcoming year? Hold on. They didn't just knock off Bama. The same core that came back along their defensive line at edge took that shit to Ohio State too.
But they still had, I believe they had in that game, Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham. Unless I'm misremembering, I believe they had those guys on the field. So that's a key
and
difference.
They still had Davis Warren. They won with Davis Warren. I'm
When you have
getting
defensive,
I'm getting a Davis Warren picture and putting him up behind me because
you won't. We had a super chat before we get out of here, by the way.
All right, a super chat. Stephen Light with a $10 super chat says Moore will be on a show cause for 2025.
I don't understand. Does Steven know something that we don't?
He must.
I don't know what the show cause would be for.
Maybe illegally recruit some illegal recruiting, or I don't know if I believe that.
Yeah, but I don't know. A player can't get a show cause, can they?
I don't believe so. I think it's just coaches. I mean, he could be suspended indefinitely. I don't know if he can get a show cause. Oh, yeah, he's talking about Moore, Sharon Moore.
Oh shit. Oh, I thought it was Dante Moore. I'm a big dumb idiot. Yeah, no.
Sharon Moore.
I don't think that he's gonna be, because if that was gonna the NCAA is stupid, but I don't think that they would drop the hammer right before the season. Am I crazy for thinking that?
I don't think they would either.
Because we would have heard something.
But here's the thing, before we get out of here. Here's the thing that the world that you and I live is, and when we talk about football, I can't live in the future. I can't live on what ifs. If something else changes that's that big, then you and I change our opinion. I can't live in what if la la land.
Yeah.
I got to live in reality.
Right.
All right.
Right. Thank you for the super chat.
Thank you for the super chat. Anything else? I guess we can't really get to the teams because I got to roll, but any other teams that stick out to you, I guess?
Washington, USC, underrated. That's all I got.
I actually ironically agree with you a little bit. All right. We'll see y'all tomorrow. We'll see you Wednesday. Y'all have a good one. Peace.